Reports continue to surface regarding the Phillies' unhappiness with Alec Bohm, and we are beginning to turn our attention to some replacements at the third base position. Well, a new name has entered the mix with Alex Bregman popping onto the Phillies' radar and being projected to go to the Phillies by a couple rival executives. We're going to dive into exactly what is being said with these latest reports, as well as if this would make sense for this Phillies team. And to dive into exactly, we got this from Buster Olney of ESPN saying that the most interesting prediction heard from a rival evaluator, the Phillies land Alex Bregman. His swing translates in that park, strong defense, lots of postseason scar tissue. So, Luke, to throw it to you right off the bat here, what's your initial impressions and how surprised are you that this is a name entering the mix?
Yeah, I mean, this has kind of been a name that we've heard,
Yeah.
honestly, now a few times this offseason. I mean, that was the first like big report, but there has been a few that I've seen so far. A guy that is definitely going to make some money this offseason. No guarantee he's going to go back to Houston, although I do think they do really want him back. But it seems like everything's sort of on the table right now. This could be a sick landing for the Phillies. It really just depends on what Bregman wants,
Yeah.
because the consensus right now is a 6 to 7 year deal. And I don't necessarily know if the Phillies want to do that with Aiden Miller, just maybe a year and a half away.
Mhm.
So that's really where I'm at right now. But if this turned into a trade Alec Bohm, sign Alex Bregman, I would be all for it for the right deal.
Okay, interesting there. And I will say it does kind of feel like the Bohm stuff is being as put out in the open as we could have expected at this point. This has kind of been a behind the scenes conversation, a talking point that we've acknowledged here that Alec Bohm has found himself on the trade block. We had AJ Przinsky yesterday hop on the mic and saying, quote, there are some people that have said he basically needs to grow up a little bit. These are kind of the same conversations we've been having with the snapping bats, slamming helmets, pouting on the field. That's the frustrations with Alec Bohm. And kind of what AJ indicated in this entire quote that was said here is like, this was not a casual benching for the playoffs. There was a lot building up to this, and as we've acknowledged, that there is. To me, it feels like the toothpaste is a little too far out of the tube at this point. That I don't see Alec Bohm coming back in a Phillies jersey next year. Do you agree with that, Luke?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that.
Okay,
I still think there's probably a pretty good chance he's back, but
really?
yeah, I don't know. It's weird, because I think moving him for the right package is the right move, but at the same time, I think they know sort of the flexibility that they have because of his sort of control with the team, but really only being for 2 years. Basically, the Alec Bohm timeline lines up with the Aiden Miller timeline pretty perfect.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at, is the only reason why I don't think they would do this. I don't think they want to sign a third baseman to a 7 year deal, unless they know already and it hasn't been said that they would consider maybe switching Aiden Miller to someplace like left field or
Yeah.
to a shortstop if they didn't know the future for Stott and they had Trey move to second. But right now, it seems like they still want him to play third base. So that's kind of the reason why the big deal for a third baseman doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But I think Bregman would be a sick bat in this lineup. He did receive a qualifying offer by the Astros. That
Okay.
is kind of the one kick. So he hasn't. He has up until November 19th. He is most likely to reject that. It is very unlikely that he's going to accept that. It's around 20 something million, meaning whatever team signs him will lose like some sort of draft capital. For the Phillies, if they did sign Bregman, it would it would cost them a second and a fifth round pick, as well as $1 million from their international bonus pool. So that's kind of the outlier there for if you have a guy that was offered a qualifying deal. But I mean, if you put this bat in there, he's a pretty special player that's really rose in the playoffs.
Yeah. Okay. So two questions on this specifically. I want to start with just Bregman directly. Obviously, you mentioned a two-time World Series champion, a guy that's been to All-Star games, has a really accomplished resume. How far does he go for moving the needle for the Phillies as far as a championship perspective? Is this the type of finishing touch move that we're kind of searching for? Do you think he fits into that category?
I do think so.
Okay.
I think he brings sort of the winning thing. I think every team needs a few winners.
Yeah.
You can have a good skilled team, but if you don't have guys that have been there before and have hoisted the trophy, I think it's really hard to win. I mean, if you go back and you look at these last World Series teams, most of them have a few. And really, right now, the only one for us before the Phillies went on their little run was Schwarber.
Trey.
So other than that, there's really not many.
Yeah.
So I think he brings that winning sort of aspect. I did see this earlier. So Alec Bohm's career WAR is 3.8, I believe. Alex Bregman had a 4.1 just last year.
Okay.
This dude can play. His WAR the last 4 seasons has been over 4. He had an 8.9 WAR in 2019. That was the year he finished runner up, I believe, for the MVP at 162 OPS plus. He had an
Wow.
unbelievable year that year. But yeah, I think this is kind of the guy that the Phillies could be looking for, really just for the right price, though.
Okay. And I guess a little bit longer winded question here. So Aid Miller, like the expectations of this team to continue competing for a World Series. It's tough to put those level of expectations on a young player. Like, how soon do you think he's going to be ready for that type of conversation? And my other point that I want to slip in here is, if I'm not mistaken, his natural position is as a shortstop, right?
Yeah, he kind of
Okay.
not really. He's been playing a lot of third in the
Okay.
minors. He's kind of been flip flopping a little bit more time at third. Um, but the Phillies have been very blatant that they have 3 prospects that they really, really like. And I don't see them moving them unless it's like the perfect deal. That would be Miller, Crawford, and Andrew Painter.
Right.
That's really the 3 guys I think right now. I think 3 guys that you'll see in the majors over the next year and a half. I think all 3 of those guys. I think next year you'll definitely see Painter. I think Justin Crawford has a pretty nice chance to make some noise and could be maybe like a late year addition next year. But those 3 guys are really sort of, I don't want to say untouchable, because if the perfect deal comes along, I don't think anybody's untouchable.
Yeah. Agreed.
But those are the guys that they've really been adamant about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So my question was going to kind of shift into, is there a world where they look at Trey Turner shifting to second, have Miller step in, and that Bryson Stott's the guy on the outside looking in? But you think it's far more likely that they're just going to will look to replace Bohm at third base?
Yeah, I think they'd rather replace Bone than move Trey.
Okay.
I think that's kind of where they're at. They've been pretty shot down whenever they've gotten asked about the trade to second base thing.
Which I'm in
Because
favor
one,
of,
I
by the
think,
way.
yeah, and one, I think they love Stott at second. I mean, he's a great defender at second. But I don't think they're really, I don't think that's on the front of their agenda right now to move Trey. I think if they can get the right deal for Bohm, whether that would be a reliever, whether that would be in a crochet deal, I think all those things right now are somewhat likely on the table.
Okay. So to wrap this one up here, what is your percentage of likelihood that Alex Bregman is the guy? It doesn't sound incredibly likely from the way that you were talking right now, but we'll do the same thing. Your 1 to 10, your level of desire, and 1 to 10, the level of likelihood here.
Yeah, if they can, I'll say this: if they could get Bregman, if they could trade Bohm and get Bregman on a 2-year deal, which is
Okay.
never going to happen, um, I'd be close to around a 9 or a 10.
Wow.
like,
Okay.
I think if you could move Bohm and he's willing to take a short deal, I think that's the perfect situation.
Okay.
As far as likelihood with them, trading Bohm, signing Bregman to a 5, 6, 7-year deal, I don't think that's incredibly likely. And I think it's tough because I do think Bregman is really going to want that deal. He's only 2 years older than Alec Bohm. So he is 30, and he's probably going to get a 6, 7-year deal. There are some teams that have been sort of out there for being interested. As one, I know the Detroit Tigers, there's been a lot of sort of buzz there. I think that would be an awesome fit for him. But I just don't see him taking a small deal because I feel like there's going to be a lot of larger ones on the table.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense there, and ultimately we will see what happens from there. But I do like that the names are starting to swirl in connection to this Phillies team. Bregman, while
Love the
he might,
rumors.
yeah, want
Love
the
them all.
rumors, keep them coming. I want the big names coming to this organization. So even if Bregman is not the guy, I do like that this is kind of popping up. We're beginning to see the wheels turn there, and ultimately, like I do see a pathway where it does play out. I do more so lean on your side of things that the costs and the years are going to be too much with Miller in mind here. But I do think like that is the type of player they're looking for. So we'll see how things go from here. But to you guys, appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, make sure you smash that subscribe button and drop it a like and give us your thoughts from 1 to 10 below. What is your level of interest in Alex Bregman? So drop those in the comments. Me and Luke will be back. Talk with you next time. Peace.